And there are people, are registered voters, who don't even register to vote, and they complain. And it's like, get out of here.
All right.
Get out of here. You have absolutely no...
We went live, so this whole conversation is going up on YouTube. So how about we start learning? All right. Last final class in the Jewish course of why. After this, we're going, first of all, this Sunday is Shavuos. So we celebrate the giving of the 10 Commandments. So men, women, and children are encouraged to be there, just like it happened 3,320 years ago. And afterwards, we have ice cream and blintzes and cheesecake, and one cheesecake has Ira's name on it. So he sponsored the cheesecake. So you have to have, and then we also have salads and all the different things. And then Monday is Yizkor. So we already lit up the Yizkor board. So that is very important. And during the summer, I'm trying to put together a short curriculum on the Temple Mount, the history of the temple. So, but I don't want to make any promises because I don't have it. Like, I have the idea and kind of things, but extra curriculum. Okay. And then next year we're already an official affiliate, and then next year the JLI course is going to start after Sukkot. And then if anyone's interested in like a Hebrew reading crash course in August, this year's Rosh Hashanah is end of September, beginning of October. So if anyone wants to do something end of August, beginning of September, well, let me know. Okay. Question number uno. For those of you who gotta turn it on first. Technology, so particular. Okay. Question number one. Why does everyone hate us? Right? It's a question. The story goes, one German Jew catches another German Jew reading the what was it called? The Stürmer, the German newspaper with all the propaganda. The guy says, "How can you read such a newspaper?" He says, "I like it." He says, "Why?" He says, "Because when I read other newspapers, 1,000 Jews died here, and this terrible thing dying. But I read this newspaper where we control the banks and we control everything, and we own everything. It makes me feel good about myself, right?" But anti-Semitism has existed forever, from Para to Haman, Torquemada, Hitler, you name it. You name it, they hate us. The question is, why? Why do they hate us? So you see on page 246, there's an interesting exercise, which Joe wouldn't know because Joe doesn't want to ruin the book. He doesn't want that there should be a crack in the binding. I understand. I once had a yeshiva boy at my house, and he goes over to my bookshelf, and all these pristine books. He takes a book out and he opens it. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm reading." "You don't do that." He's looking at me like I'm crazy. Why? He says, "You're ruining the book, and now it's not. You don't actually learn from the book. You leave it up on the shelf." Anyway, so on page 246 in the book, you see, list some of the primary causes of anti-Semitism. So what do you think? Why is there anti-Semitism? What do you say?
They blame the Jews for Christ.
So religious anti-Semitism. Alan, what do you say? You're the only Ellen here, so. You're looking around like.
Just societal envy. Jews being probably more educated or whatever, and better,
right,
in a lot of respects than other people around them, and have, were more disease-free because they had cleanliness. And
right,
like that,
so. right. Yep. The Franklins want to give a joint opinion.
Were known as money lenders at one time. So
Money hungry. Control the bank. Right. Yeah, Ira?
We're the chosen people.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Chosen.
Yeah, chosen. Yeah.
Sort of what she's
right. Stand out. Okay. So some people think it's because of the chosen thing. Let's just for a second. Some people think it's because we go around saying we're the chosen people. It's not true. Historically, it's not true. They hate us even if we don't say we're the chosen people. So when the Jews were in Germany, they were so assimilated, and even the Jews that were practicing Jews. I'm not talking about the Jews that didn't identify as Jews. I'm talking about the Jews that identified as Jews. They called Berlin the New Jerusalem. No need to go to Israel. I know it's hard for us to fathom because everybody's so gung-ho about Israel, the land. Yesterday was Jerusalem Day, right? And a month ago was, if you hear a Jew saying, I don't care about Israel, he sounds like, he can't run for president, right? So, but can you imagine people in the Jewish community saying, we don't care about Israel, we don't need it anymore? That's the way it was. And they said, no, we don't need the chosen. We're happy to be Germans. And we know what the Germans did to us. So like the story goes, some German guy takes they come in. A couple of German guys surround a old Jewish guy. They said they surround him and they're gonna beat him up, but they need a reason. So tell us, Jew boy, who's responsible for the world's problems? It's the Jews. It's the Jews. Right, it's the Jews. And the apples, the old man says. Apples? Why apples? I don't know. Why Jews? It's like it's never made any sense. So the fact of the matter is that's not what it is. Look at text 1a and 1b from Jonathan Sachs. Anti-Semitism is not an ideology. It's a virus. Just like a virus attacks the human body, so too anti-Semitism attacks societies. How does it survive? By mutating. And he continues. Very interesting what he writes over here in text 1b on page 247. He said, but Ira, there's an extra book over there if you want to follow. So he says that anti-Semitism has taken on different forms throughout the centuries. In the beginning, it was religious anti-Semitism. So everybody was religious. Back then, there was no such thing as you didn't believe in God. In fact, the Romans thought we were atheists because we believed in a invisible God. There was no such thing as you don't believe in God. Heaven and hell were reality. God was a reality. And because, like I think you, Joe, said, he brought up the religious problem, so then it was religious. And then when religion became less in fashion, less prestigious, and science and genetics became more in vogue. So what happened was, then the anti-Semitism, was racial and it was genetic. There's a famous quote from Moses Montefiore. I don't know if it's true or not. It doesn't make a difference. He says he was supposed to be voted. He was up for vote to be in the English Chamber of what's it called? Something. Lord Chamber of Lords. Yeah, thank you. What? House of Commons, right? So they, I think someone voted against him. So he got up and he said, "You're not against me because of my policies or because of my character, it's because of the shape of my nose." And that's what it was in the 1800s, and we know in the 1900s, the anti-Semitism was racial and was scientific. Now, Jonathan Sachs writes, now it's a whole new thing. Now, the anti-Semitism is all about human rights. The whole BDS movement, boycott, divest, and I don't know what the S stands for, and stuff, right? He says they're accused of the 5 primal sins against human rights: racism, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, attempted genocides, and crimes against humanity. Everybody's all up in arms against Israel that we are wiping out the other people. So let's go a little deeper. Where it really comes from. So in order to understand where anti-Semitism, the source or the reason for anti-Semitism, we have to look at the definitive anti-Semitic story in the Torah, which is the story of Purim. Story of Purim is, Passover, Pesach is also anti-Semitism. But at least over there's a reason. The Jews were multiplying, and Paro thought, what if there's an invading army? The Jews are going to jump ship, even though the probability was very low, because the Jews were always, wherever we went, we've always been loyal citizens. But okay, you can argue that as unreasonable as the worry was, it was a worry. What was Haman's reason? They're different. That was Haman went over to Achashverosh and said, there are these people, they're spread out amongst your kingdom, and they're different. Let's kill them. If that's not anti-Semitism, I don't know what is, right? So the Gemara analyzes this story, right? So Haman went to Pari. It says why I keep saying Pari. Haman went to Achashverosh, and And he said, I'll give you 10,000 talents, loaves of silver, if you allow me to exterminate the Jews. He made a whole calculation of taxes and everything else. Achashverosh says, no. Keep it. Keep the money and do whatever you want. So now the Gemara says, look at text number 2. So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says, an example to what you compare this. It's like two guys. One has a mound of dirt in his field, and the other one has a ditch in his field. And one guy saying, I wish somebody would take away this mound. And the guy with the ditch says, where am I going to get dirt to fill in the ditch? And one day these two farmers meet, and the guy says, I'll pay you for your dirt. The guy says, pay me? Take it for free. So at Achashverosh, the Jews were like a mound in the field. To Haman, the Jews were like a ditch. So now, the point of a metaphor, in Hebrew it's called a mashal, is if you don't understand something. If you understand something, then why give an example? So what's not understood about the anti-Semitism over here, that Achashverosh and Haman hated the Jews, that we needed an example of what it was. We'll skip the question for discussion, 249. So the Rebbe explains like this. The Rebbe explains. See, this is, by the way, this is in Iran. Anti-Semitism goes back in Iran, a long way. You know the story. Ayatollah Khamenei goes to a fortune teller. The fortune teller says, "I can see in the future that you're going to die in a Jewish holiday." So Ayatollah says, "Which holiday?" He says, "I don't know, but whenever you die, it's going to be a Jewish holiday." Right? So, right. Just fill in the blank, right? All right. So the Rebbe explains like this. What the Gemara is trying to teach us over here is two different types of anti-Semitism. Some people hate the Jews because they're a mound. Their mere existence bothers them. Means it doesn't make a difference what they do. I mean, if the Jews change and act like the Gentiles, that's not what they want. The very existence of the Jews bothers them. Like the Israeli poet said, they don't want us here, they don't want us there, they don't want us to be in Israel, they don't want us to be in Europe, they don't want us to be. I forgot what the name of the poet is, but that's the anti-Semitism of Achashverosh. It's a mound. The very existence doesn't bother us. Now, why? Achashverosh, the reason why it was called Achashverosh, the Gemara tells us, is because he was chash berosh, weak in the head. If you look at Achashverosh, he's very easily convinced. Guy came over and kill your wife. Fine, I'll kill. Get a new wife. All right, get a new wife. You see throughout the whole story of Purim, he's very easily swayed back and forth. He wasn't a very intelligent person. So why does it bother you? It just does. That's an intelligent argument. That's like me talking to my kids, right? He's looking at me. So what? Look away. No, right? It's an immature, illogical, foolish argument. Why they bother you? They just do. Haman's anti-Semitism was a much deeper, much more highly educated anti-Semitism. Haman was a very, very smart guy, and Haman's problem was like this. Haman's problem was the Jews made him feel that there's a ditch, because what was Haman's life? Drink, marry, and because tomorrow we die. What's that thing? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Right. So that's what Haman wanted to do. So what does he do? He sees a Jew, and a Jew wakes up. He goes to shul in the morning. A Jew has a goal-oriented life. He always has something to do. And when you see somebody who has a goal-oriented life and you're not doing anything, it makes you feel horrible about yourself. So here I'm eating for what? Just to eat. And here's a guy who eating to serve God, eating to accomplish. So the Jewish people made him feel empty in his life. He had a ditch. So there's two things Haman could have done. Either he could have improved. He could have implemented, a New Year's resolution, gone to the gym, right? Done something to made his life better. But that would have been too difficult. It's much easier just to get rid of the reason for the ditch. No Jews, no conscious problem. So that's where we have Haman's the metaphor for Haman is the ditch. He feels the void of higher purpose and meaning. So here we have the two types of anti-Semitism. It's the nuisance and the void. And everyone and throughout the time they've always said it always comes down to these different types of anti-Semitism. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to hate is not a logical thing. You can't hate somebody. How long can you hate somebody already? Let's say a guy cheated you 30 years ago. So you don't want to talk to him, but hate him? What could you do? There's a guy, he actually came to the last course. He told me he went on a business trip to Cuba. Guy comes over to him and says, "You Jews?" He says, "Yeah." I don't know how he knew. He says, "You kill God." So the guy says, "Yeah, me. I did it. Yeah." Like, what are you talking about? I just got off the plane to Cuba 2 seconds ago. I didn't do anything, right? So hate is not a logical thing. And the biggest problem Jews have is we say, maybe the guy's right. Maybe it is my fault. So we start blaming ourselves. Our job is to act with a very strong Jewish identity. And the outside world will respect Jews who respect themselves. To start answering back that maybe, I know this is off the subject, but the rebbe was once addressing the topic of giving land back in Israel. The rebbe gave an example. I've said this before, of a guy who you allow to stay in your house for a long time. And after a while, the guy says, part of the house is mine. So if you come back with a very strong response and say, what you're saying is garbage, then the whole argument is a non-starter. But if you start saying, I want to be a nice guy and I want to be apologetic and all that, say, well, let's talk about it. You lost the argument. So when someone comes with these control all these different things, our job is not to respond apologetically. Wrong is wrong. But anti-Semitism is always going to exist until God brings Mashiach, and the spirit of evil will be removed from the earth. Until then, look at the Gemara says, Esav hates Yaakov. There's nothing we can do about it. Any questions before we move on to top?
I think the biggest thing, we all can know is in modern times it's ignorance.
Yeah.
People just don't know.
Yeah, you're right. And they come and they had these very. I remember. I think I've told the story. Right. Well, yeah. Right. Well, I had a guy, my friend in yeshiva. He's English. So he told me his brother was once visiting these far out towns in the English countryside. Visiting there's some communities that only have like 1 or 2 Jews, so they can't have a rabbi full time. So Chabad, we send guys after they finish yeshiva, before they get married, in between 18 and 22 years old, we send them, to get in touch with these Jews, bring them whatever they need. So he's walking over, English people, they can either be very polite or very abrasive. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I had an English person tell me I was a terrorist. Straight off my face. So, it's okay. Anyway, so the English person comes over to this guy and says, "What are you?" He says, "I'm a Jew." He says, "No, you're not." "Oh, yes, I am." "No, you're not." He said, "What do you say? No, I'm not." It's because Jews have horns in their head and have a tail. This story didn't happen in 17-something. The story happened in the early 90s. My friend's like, "Where do you live? Under what rock dealer?" But you're right. A lot of these people who have these ideas, they don't know the truth. And same thing with all the hatred towards Israel. If they would only know. I remember when we arrived in Israel last time we were there, as we were pulling out of the airport, Cyril remarked, my wife remarked, it says, "Do you know what the problem is? When people see Israel, they see Gaza. They don't see Ben Gurion. They don't see the normal life. They only see over there." Do you know? Right. It's a fault of the media, he said. But what? But again,
and your people can read or write, whatever.
Okay, I'm saying, but no, it's the fault of the media. But the fact of the matter is, people also have an obligation to get a complete picture on their own. I'm just saying.
I was born and raised in Canada. And moving here to the United States, I noticed the media here in the United States is extremely censored.
Censored.
They teach you, they show you what they want to show.
Yeah, you're right.
anywhere around the world, except the United States, you have world news.
Right.
Over here, if
Yeah,
you
well,
get world news, it's
Hope it's not BBC World News because that's not
it's
that's
like you asking
yeah.
for the world.
yeah, you're right. No, you're right again. But like I said, it all goes back to the same thing. People don't know. They don't know.
Should
And
I have a quick experiment to do outside of this? Ask people how many, start off with tell them there's approximately 7 billion people on the planet. Ask them how many people are Jewish, and you're going to get
Yeah.
the most ridiculous.
yeah,
$1
yeah.
billion,
That's a famous.
$2 billion,
Yeah. We're very, very. Yeah, okay, that's true. Maybe that goes back to we did in the first course. There's so many Jews in Hollywood. All right, question number 2. We're running very late. All right, question number 2. What's this idea that when a boy turns 13, a girl turns 12, you become an adult? It's ridiculous. No, you don't. Even Jewish parents, your kid's an adult. Yeah, very nice. We're not handing over the keys to the Beamer to our bar mitzvah boy. You're crazy. I'm an adult. Yeah, you're an adult. Go make your bed. 13 means absolutely nothing. 13 means now your father can officially, legitimately drag you out of bed because before you didn't count. Now you count, right?
But from what I understood for this, last 2 weeks ago, we had a bar mitzvah at the synagogue.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
There was a kid here in the shul that was bar mitzvah. Okay.
And he said in his speech, now I am 13 by Jewish law, I'm an adult, and I can't use an excuse that I don't want to come to shul because my dad doesn't have to pay for my mistake.
Right.
Now at 13, if I don't come, it counts on me, not on my dad.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly the question. Now let me see your question. Is that 13-year-old an adult?
Technically, I don't know.
No, and by Jewish law also not. Look, if you look at text number 3. Look at text number 3. A boy can be a person can be a sheikhet, a ritual slaughterer until he's 20 or 18. It says here they're different ages. Do you know? According to Jewish law, you can't go to the army until you're 20. And according to the Torah, I'm talking about. According to the Torah, it's this week's parsha. Until you're 20. Until you're 20, and if you make if a person under the age of 20 makes some kind of real estate transaction, it's null and void. Sure, because what do you mean? How is this guy gonna? He doesn't. Do you know? They say science has shown that a person's brain doesn't fully develop until they're 26. They're saying that all the studies that show marijuana is not bad for you. That's only after 26, but it's bad for a developing brain. But the studies have shown that. And now with football, with the concussions, now they're going crazy because concussions are bad if you're an adult. If you're a kid, it's much worse. That's why they're trying to get contact out of football, as much as possible from a younger age. In high school, they have this called heads up program, how to tackle properly. Sure. So what's this? What are you talking about? 13, you're an adult. No, you're not. Not civilly, not even according to Jewish law. The only thing you can do is be responsible. That if you do something wrong, you're responsible.
I'm taking a guess. I didn't look at the book. I don't know.
Okay.
But that's like a generic age of puberty starts. Women, girls, well,
Okay.
actually younger, so a lot of times. But that's like they had to find some age, so they made it 13. 20.
Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. All right, and not the physical, but the spiritual. Okay, yeah, and also scientifically, we'll come full circle. Anyway, look at what the Rebbe's comment in text number 3. He says that even according to most nations, by the way, the number 21 and 18 is an arbitrary number. 18 is a number. What are you? 18. There's no scientific study that shows you're smarter when you're 18 than when you are when you're 17. Now around 21, he says interesting over here is that behind my slide. Says the formation of a nation, of the other nations, how they settled land, and then they had to protect that land, and they came to a conclusion: when is a person able-bodied person and able to protect the land and to sow the land and to take care of the land around the age of 20, 21. But our focus has never been land. Our focus, the formation of the Jewish people, was based around Torah. So we don't focus on what physical labor you can do. We focus on when can you come to appreciate something a little greater than yourself. And science has shown that children, when they're younger, they learn in concrete. I mean, they can't understand things that abstract. They can't understand abstract reasoning. When does that change? Around 11, 12. Girls earlier than boys, but it's around 11, 12, 13. They begin to understand something outside themselves. What are we trying to say? What the rebbe is saying here, therefore, according to the Jewish law, one need not be 20, the age when a citizen is strong enough to contribute to his country's existence by defending it, to reach the age of majority. Rather, the Jewish nation confers adult status when youngsters are mature enough to understand the great privilege and responsibility of being a part of a Jewish people. So what it means here, the reason why that you said the kid got up in shul and said, I'm an adult and I'm responsible, is because responsible means that you understand the effects of your actions. Doesn't mean you're an adult. It means now you can understand what's right and what's wrong. You're still going to make bad. You're still going to make bad decisions. But in the old times, the number 21 was based on being a knight. Look at text number 4. Very, very interesting. My French isn't as good as yours, so you'll forget it. Jean-Baptiste de la Crune, de Saint-Palais. Yeah. Pat myself on the back. I said my father's Canadian. And it says the reason why it became 21 is because that was the age of a knight. I mean, when a person was younger, they can work, but the knight, they had to carry armor and all those different things and fight. Then they realized 21 they were able-bodied to do these things. And because a knight, he writes in the article, because the knight was always a very prestigious position, so that carried on. The number 21 carried on even till today's time. So 21 became a prestigious number, because back in the old days, 21 was the day you became a knight. But by us, the Jewish people, focus is Torah. So we focus on what you can appreciate. So today, look, 17 is agricultural work, 21 is knighthood. But by us, it's not physical labor. It's mental appreciation, and therefore it's 12 and 13. But like you're saying, but the physical signs of maturity are a reflection of what's going on inside as well. Usually, I mean, there are people who physically mature and inside they're still very immature, but it corresponds to the change in their cognitive development. It's called the 4 stages of child's cognitive development. He says it's called a formal operational stage. That's what it's called. When in the beginning, children draw general conclusions from personal experience and specific facts, and then later they draw specific conclusions from abstract concepts using logic. So not always do you have to. It has to be in the concrete. All right. So that's the physical. Now let's explore the Kabbalistic, the spiritual, the soul. It's explained in Tanya, in the fundamental book of Chassidus, and this is brought down in Kabbalah, that we all suffer from multiple personality disorder, which means we all have 2 souls, which are, we have our animal soul, and the reason why it's called our animal soul is because it's very similar to an animal that only cares about its own existence. That means your human part of yourself cares that it should survive. That's one part of you. It's called the animal soul. It's called the vitalizing soul. It makes sure that you exist. Let's call it the soul of existence. And then there's an additional soul. It's called the godly soul. And that godly soul gives you the will to do things outside yourself, giving charity. That's a godly soul thing. Coming to shul, putting on tefillin, doing a mitzvah, that's a godly soul thing. So now the question is, when does the bodily soul enter a person, and when does the godly soul enter? So the bodily soul obviously enters immediately, because if you don't have that soul, you're dead, right? I've told a story, right? The guy who had a heart attack, and they thought he was dead. So they put him in the morgue. They had to process him. So all of a sudden, he wasn't dead. So it was a night shift. He wakes up, and he's without clothing. And when there was a guy working in the morgue, he says, "So I'm cold." So the guy working there was an African American brother. He says, Says, boy, you ain't dead. You ain't cold. You dead. Right? Right? So when your person is born, you have to have that animal soul. But your godly soul, that comes later. That comes in stages. And the proof is in the pudding. When a child is very young, they're very selfish. They're very self-oriented. Right? Like I try to explain to my son, he loves my phone. Try to explain to him that the phone's expensive and everything else, that I need the phone. He doesn't understand. Children are very self-oriented. As they grow up, they realize the universe exists outside themselves. And what is that? That is a slow introduction. You see in text number 5, the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, that is a slow introduction that happens over time. And when does it fully enter into a person? So by a girl 12 and by a boy 13. And now we know why you can't be fully responsible before you're 12 or 13. Because unless you have an equal balance of godly soul and human soul, how can God expect you to fight back your human impulses if you don't have a corresponding equal godly impulse as well? So because that's not fully implemented until you're 13, therefore a person is not held responsible until he is 13, right? So you got the human soul and the godly soul. That enters at birth. That is fully integrated at 12 or 13, and that's why that's what it means bar mitzvah. So bar mitzvah is not something new. It's a fully, so it starts, it's in stages. Okay. And then there's some, and now let's deal with another question. Why girls 12 and boys 13? Why not both 12 or both 13? No. Scientists show that girls mature earlier. I know science says that now, but we've been saying that for thousands of years. So where do we get it from? Right? So I was listening to a rabbi, he was giving a class, and he's talking about how some guy came over to him and said, we don't need the Torah. We can figure it out on our own. We can live a godly life. So the rabbi says, oh, okay. Tell me something the Torah does, that you would do, you don't need the Torah for. Like, I don't know, don't kill. The rabbi's like, very funny. 3,000 years after God said don't do it, you come and say, okay, I don't need that idea anymore, right? It's like science said it now 3,000 years later, like their new idea. We've been saying it for 3,000 years. The question is, where do we get it from? Let's go to the beginning of time. Look at text number 6. Text number 6 says that God built the side for Eve that he had taken from man into a woman. Now in another place it says man and woman were androgynous entity. They were created back to back. So which one is it? Were they created back to back? Or if they were created back to back and God split them, so what did God build? Which one is it? So the answer is like this. If you look at the word, the Gemara says, if you look at the word vayiven, and he built, and the word for bina, which means understanding, which is we'll use the word maturity, because maturity means you understand, right? So take out the letters in the dark blue. These 3 letters are the same: the yud, the beis, and the nun. Okay. So regarding the female, the woman, it says vayiven, and he built. And the Gemara says in text number 7, women were bestowed an additional maturity, have earlier maturity than men, based on that. And that's why girls mature earlier, because they were given an additional endowment of maturity. And in general, Kabbalah talks about how men they exemplify the attribute of chachma, of conception, and women they exemplify the attribute of comprehension. Yeah.
Does it? Women naturally are much more spiritual than man.
Yeah.
Men have to work to get to spiritual.
Women's souls are more in tune with their source. We both come from the same spiritual place. The question is, are we aware of our spiritual source? So women, yes. Men, no. So that's why men have to. God obligated the man to implement more action to get in touch, to make sure he doesn't stray off that course. That's why women don't have to go going to shul is not an obligation. That's why women don't. We discussed this last week or two. I forgot when it was. That's why women don't have all the time-related mitzvahs. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. All right, number 3. We're crawling along over here. God, but okay. There you go. Number 3. Why do we pour a cup of wine for Elio?
Can of beer won't work.
Can of beer won't work. Well, you ever asked him? No. Maybe it's a great idea. Maybe next year we'll put a can of beer that says this bud's for you, right? Oh. There you go. There you go. That's why we did that. Okay, so Elio has 3 jobs. Number 1, he's going to herald the coming of Mashiach. Number 2, he's going to solve problems. Number 3, he's going to testify. Let's go through all 3, and then we'll connect it to Pesach. Text number 8a. How do we know he's going to herald the coming of Mashiach? It says in Malachi. A bunch of songs are used for these words. The prophet says, before Mashiach comes, I am sending the prophet Elijah to you before the day of God comes. And then we see Rashi in Leviticus. This is from last week's Parsha. We see the name Yaakov is spelled, usually Yaakov is spelled, probably have a slide over here. There you go. Harold, and he's going to have a slide? No, not yet. Okay. So the name Yaakov usually is spelled with 4 letters: Yud, Ayin, Kuf, Vav. In 5 places in the Torah, it's spelled with an additional letter. In 5 places in the Torah, Eliyahu's name is spelled with missing a letter. So Rashi says that the guarantee that from Eliyahu that he's going to come and remember his children. That's what the Gemara says. That's number 1. Number 2, resolve unanswered questions. There's some things the rabbis did not have the answers to. I know it's shocking. You guys think I have all the answers, but certain things we don't know. You look inside the Gemara, they're arguing, what about this? What about this? And they're going back all these scenarios, and finally the Gemara says, I don't know. We don't know. And the Gemara ends off Teiku. Look at text number 9. It says Teiku, the first word. What does Teiku mean? Teiku means like tick. Eliyahu is going to come with all these answers in his pocket. Or it says it's an abbreviation that Tishbi, Eliyahu, will resolve questions. So all these questions you have that I don't know the answer to, he's going to answer. Why good things happen to bad people? All those great questions that people have. Halachic and which tribe you're from. A lot of these questions that we don't know, he's going to resolve. Number 3, testify. Testify about what? Testify about the Jewish people. You notice in the picture there's a cheer. You all know what that cheer is? It's called a cheer of Elijah. By a Brit Milah, there's always a cheer of Elijah. Why? So the story goes that in ancient Israel, when this kingdom was split into 2, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judea. So the kingdom of Israel was a man named Achav, and he was married to a very, very wicked woman named Izebel. And she went out to wipe out. She was an idol worshiper of the Baal, and she tried to wipe out every prophet, until the point where Eliyahu had to run away. Imagine Eliyahu, the prophet, great holy man, had to run away from the land of Israel. And usually these days, Jews are running to the land of Israel, right? Because they don't want to get sent back to face prosecution. Eliyahu had to run away from Israel. And where did he run to? He ran to Mount Sinai. And he's there in the cave. And there in the cave, God tells him, says, "What are you doing here?" He says, "What am I doing here? I'll tell you what I'm doing here." He says, "Your people are no good. They rejected your covenant. They don't care about you anymore. I'm the only one left." Like God took offense to that. Look at text number 10. He said, "It says the Jewish people have rejected my covenant because you spoke negative about my people. For now on, every time there's a Brit Milah, and the word Brit doesn't mean circumcision. The word Brit means covenant. Whenever the Jewish people uphold the covenant, you're going to be there to testify that you were wrong, and the Jewish people are still loyal." So those are the 3 reasons why he's there. Now let's connect it to Pesach, which was the original question. The redemption part of it is really obvious, because on Passover we celebrate the redemption. And it says, and you see in text number 11, in Nisan we were redeemed the first time. In the month of Nisan we will be redeemed again. So when we're celebrating the first redemption, we believe that Eliyahu is going to come and redeem us in the next redemption. And that's why we have a custom, we unlock the doors. Because that some people purposely don't lock the doors at the night of Pesach, because it's called the night of watching. And why? Because God's going to protect us, but also it's a sign of belief that Eliyahu is going to come, and he's going to come tell us the Mashiach is here, so he doesn't have to open the door. Now, obviously, Eliyahu is not going to come open the door, but it's a sign of belief that you believe that you believe in the coming of Mashiach. And the Jewish people, we always try to express our faith in a concrete way. So we're pouring a cup for Eliyahu. So when you come, what's the first thing when Mashiach's going to come? We're going to say l'chaim, right? Right? Even you're going to say l'chaim, right? Right? So that's what we do. We pour a cup for Eliyahu because we're stating our belief that he's going to herald the coming of Mashiach. Number two, the question. Remember, the second part was resolving questions. What's the question? Look at in text number 12. 12. There's an argument. There's supposed to be 4 cups or 5 cups. You know there's an argument? There's always an argument. Right? There's an argument. We do 4 cups. There's an argument. It should be 4 cups or should there be 5 cups? So what do? We put a 5th cup on the table to say we don't know, but Eliyahu is going to tell us. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to do it, because after the 4 cups, I feel I'm ready to collapse. But if Eliyahu says drink another one, we'll drink another one. Number three, testimony. The link between bris milah and Pesach is also very similar. Text number 13 on page 259. So we see that what was the founding moment, the seminal seed of the Jewish people, the Exodus from Egypt, and that's where the covenant started, right? That's when the Jewish people sacrificed the Pesach lamb. And we took the blood and we painted our doorposts. So when we sit down for a Pesach seder, we're declaring our belief and committing ourselves to the covenant of the Torah. So that's why Eliyahu has to come. You said we don't care anymore. Now you're going to come, you're going to witness, and you're going to testify back to God that we do care, and we're still keeping this tradition. Good? Any questions? Everyone's good with Elijah? Good.
That Isaiah thing you had before, it's interesting. It's right across the street from the United Nations.
This one?
It's right across the street from the United Nations.
Yeah. And it's when Mashiach comes, when nations will, and it's happening as we speak. Okay, next thing. Very prevalent in Jewish tradition is we ask a tzaddik, a holy person, or we go to the grave of a holy person to pray on our behalf. Now, we don't believe in intermediaries. Right? You go down a very, very slippery path when you start talking about that God doesn't have ultimate control. So how could our religion, which talks about Hashem Echad, the one God, and we don't believe in the Trinity, we don't believe in anything like that, how can we go to a human being, a man of mere flesh and blood, and pray to him that he should help us? So let me start off the answer with the story. The second Hasidic master his name was the Ber, and he was the Maggid of Mezrich, preacher of Mezrich. So one time there was this couple who they were comfortable, not especially rich, whatever. They lived alone. They had no children, so they weren't rich, but they got by, and they never had children, and they always wanted children. So they heard there was this great rabbi in the town of Mezrich, and if he gives you a blessing, then blessing comes true, and you have whatever you want. So they made a long journey to Mezrich. They have an appointment. They walk into the Maggid's office. Maggid says, "Well, why are you here?" He says, "We heard that when you give a blessing, it comes true. So we want to ask you give a blessing for we should have a child." Maggid looks at him and says, 50 gold coins. 50 gold coins. That was an exorbitant amount of money. Said, yeah, you heard me. 50 gold coins. No money. No blessing. So they reach into their pockets, they go in and said they have a half of a silver coin. The terms are very clear. 50 gold coins or nothing. So they go out, they make a calculation, they sell everything, they borrow, they come up with 2 gold coins. They come back to the rabbi and they said, Magid, you got 2 gold coins. He said, I was very clear. 50 gold coins. Otherwise, no blessing. So the husband got very, very nervous, very angry. He says, you're a charlatan. You're a fake. What kind of rabbi are you? He grabs the coins off the table and tells his wife, we don't need this guy. We'll pray to God, and he'll give us a kid for free. So the Maggid smiled and said, exactly. You walked into my office and thought, I have the power to give you kids. I don't have the power to give you anything. It's all God. Keep your money, and next year you'll have a baby. And that's exactly what happened. We don't pray to people. We ask people to pray on our behalf. Very big difference. We don't believe that any person has the power to change anything. Like you see text number 14. The fact that we ask people to pray on our behalf is very, very prevalent in the Torah. We asked the prophet Moshe to do it. We asked the prophet Samuel to do it. King Tzidkiah asked the prophet Jeremiah to do it. Hanina ben Dosa. Hanina ben Dosa was a rabbi who everyone knew when he prayed, God listened. In fact, when he finished praying, he would tell you if the prayer would be answered. So they asked him, how do you know? He said, because if the prayer flows, they didn't have set prayers back then. If the prayer flows, then I know God's listening. If it doesn't flow, then... And there was even a rabbi called Chani Hamagal, Chani the circle maker. You ever heard of this guy? Very, very quickly, it didn't rain for like 3 years in Israel. So they went up to Chani. So we need to pray for us. So Chani went outside. He drew a circle around himself and said, listen here, God, I'm not leaving this circle until it rains. So it started drizzling. So Chani said, no. I need rain, not drizzle. So it started pouring torrential downpour. It's harmful to crops. So Chani said, too strong, too much. He fine-tuned it. And to say these people exist. You know the saying, a curse on both your houses? You heard that saying? Chani Amagal said that when there was a big divide in the Hasmonean family, and the heroes, the story of Hanukkah. So a few generations later, there's a big fight between 2 brothers. Who should be the rightful king and high priest? So they asked Chani, if you bless me, so this way I'll be victorious. So Chani says, the heck with you and the heck with you. Blessing on both your houses. I actually killed him on the spot. Anyway, off the subject. Sorry. But the point of the matter is, you see in text number 15, the concept of praying we're asking someone to pray on our behalf is very normal. In fact, in Slichot, in the prayer before Rosh Hashanah, and some communities say between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, page 263, we ask angels to intercede on our behalf. Now, what's he saying over here? He's saying it's similar to when a human being speaks before a king. So you're in such great awe of the king, you feel embarrassed to open your mouth. So you ask the minister, a friend of the king, to bring your request to the king. So what he's saying over here is very, very important. Number one, there is no intermediary. You are standing with the king. You're praying to God. But you're in such awe that you're asking the angel to bring forth your prayer. But the fact of the matter is, you can talk straight. There is no intermediary, and you are there in front of the king. So that knocks that thought that we're praying to something other than God. Then there's why are we praying to a tzaddik? Okay. The reason why we're praying to a tzaddik, you see in text number 16, is because all Jewish people are one unit. We're one organism. And so there's head Jews, and there's feet Jews, and hand Jews. We all make up one thing. And therefore, no Jew is a low Jew or unimportant Jew. It's like the head saying, I don't need that toe. You know what they discovered? You know what your balance is? in your pinky toe. If you don't have your pinky toe, you can't. It's very hard to balance. You think your pinky toe. What do I need my pinky toe? I read it in a study somewhere. You would think, yeah, why do I need my pinky toe? No, you need that pinky toe, right? We all make up one unit. So the question is, when you feel pain, if you stub your toe, where do you feel the pain? You don't feel it in your toe. You feel it in your head. You feel your pain in your head. Your head feels the pain. So now, what this comes down to, so when you go to a tzaddik, and you're asking him to pray for you, he's not praying for you. He's praying for himself because he feels your pain. This is a great story with the Rebbe Maharash. Rebbe Maharash, Rabbi Shmuel had 3 sons. So one time, so he has 2 sons, Rabbi Zalman Aaron and Rabbi Shalom Doiber, who later became the Rebbe. They would play. They were young brothers. So one time they were playing Chassid and Rebbe, the disciple and Rebbe. So Rabbi Zalman Aaron says, "I'm the older brother. I'll be the Rebbe, and you're the younger brother. You'll be the Chassid." So Shalom Doiber goes and he's the Chassid. He's telling the Rebbe all his problems, and then then the Zalman Aaron, the older brother, gives out a solution. So the younger brother says, "You're no Rebbe." Why not? It's because the Rebbe first gives a groan, a sigh first, because it bothers him, because he identifies. Let me tell you a story. I just reminded myself of a story. When Ariel Sharon, you guys are familiar with the story of not in Tevi. Yeah, it was in Tevi. I think it was a story with Tevi. Ariel Sharon once came to New York, and like most Israeli dignitaries, he went to the Rebbe, and then after the course. The conversation, the Rebbe says, "So when are you going back to Israel?" He said, "I'm flying back, whatever it was, Tuesday, whatever." The Rebbe said, "I think it would be a good idea." He said, "Why not stay a little longer?" He said, "No, I understand, but I really have to get back." Whatever. So in the car, Ariel Sharon was telling his driver, "So that Rabbi Schneerson, what a lovely person." He was telling me, he was asking me, why didn't I stay a little longer? So the driver was a little bit more knowledgeable. He said, no, you don't understand. If the Rebbe was telling you to stay a little longer, he's not giving you a good, because he's being nice. He's giving you an order to stay longer, and it would be beneficial for you to stay longer." So Ariel Sharon decided, you know something? Why not? He changed his ticket. That flight he was supposed to be on was hijacked, and they landed, I think, somewhere, and then they let everyone go. I'm not sure it was in Tevi. I think it was something else. They let everyone go. No one understood what the purpose of the hijack was. They only found out later that Ariel Sharon was supposed to be on the plane. So now, one guy comes into a private audience with the Rebbe. He says, "No, I'm not a chassid, so I can have the chutzpah to ask you, because a chassid you don't ask the Rebbe. A chassid is the disciple of the Rebbe. So you do whatever the Rebbe says, utter devotion." We'll get to that in a second. That's question number 5. So he says, "I'm not a chassid, so I can have chutzpah. So I can ask you, if you knew the plane was being hijacked, why did you only tell Ariel Sharon? Why didn't you tell everybody?" So Rebbe answered, "I didn't know the plane was being hijacked. So I'll tell you." He says, "Because ever since I was young," the Rebbe answered, "I trained myself that when I meet another person, I try to find a way how I can help the other person. I try to identify with this other person to the utmost extent. Right? I try to identify what's good for him and what's bad for him. And I sensed that it wasn't good for him to go on this plane." That's what a tzaddik is. A tzaddik is the head. Where are you? I'm behind. So a tzaddik is the brain. Just like you feel your pain in your brain, a tzaddik feels your pain. So you're going to the tzaddik and you're asking him, pray not only on my behalf, on your behalf, because it feels your pain. And this kind of rolls into the next question. What's with this love Chasidim have with the Rebbe? I'm sure you heard me mention it a bunch of times. Chasidim are always talking about the Rebbe. Why is it necessary? So first of all, from the halacha point, you see in text number 17, Maimonides says that every person is supposed to attach themselves, put themselves in a positive environment, in a good environment. So if you have somebody who's a teacher and a person who's an example, how you're supposed to live your life, Maimonides says, as a matter of fact of law, you are supposed to put yourself, cleave to him, and put yourself in their surroundings, so you learn from them, and that you're guarded from going and doing things that are negative. And then in text number 18, a whole group of college students had a private audience with the rebbe. This is back in the 60s, and they submitted their questions. Some pretty good questions were submitted. So one of them, they asked is, what's the role of a rebbe? So you see text number 18 on page 267. He said everybody has that switch. Everybody is inherently holy, and everybody has that switch to turn on that fire. The question is, where is that switch? He says, my job is to help you find that switch. And the reason why Chassid always has to hang around the Rebbe is because you can forget. You can get off track. So the Rebbe was a person who would help us find the correct path, get the most out of who we're supposed to be. That's what the Rebbe was. And every person in his own individual way. And that's why everyone who ever met the Rebbe was enamored with him, because they felt very complete. Here was a person who looked at for the best of what I had. Yeah.
How come, and correct me if I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
I don't understand that it's sort of like a father-son thing.
Yeah.
Now I can understand the father, and I understand what
Yeah.
you just said. But why would the son be? Why can't you, in a Chasidim, be the head rabbi? Was your bloodlines?
No, nothing to do. No.
Why is that the son? It's like inherited.
It's only okay. First of all, the Baal Shem Tov was by himself, and his disciple was not a son. The Haggadah is rich. I told you the story with the couple who wanted a child. That wasn't a son, and the one who took over after him was the Chabad Rebbe, Shneur Zalman of Liadi. He wasn't a son. It's not the son. It's a person who has a quality. It's a quality you have to have. I always use the example between the two brothers, Moshe and Aaron. Right? Aaron was a high priest. He was a very holy person. He wasn't the leader. To be a leader means you can identify with every single person. When Moshe asks for that God should appoint a leader after him, he says, I want you to appoint a leader, not who's going to, very brave, obviously that goes, but someone who can identify with every person at their level. Because only when I get down to you on your level, can I really look at what you want, what you need, your best interest. If I'm standing on my soapbox and I'm a holy guy and I tell you what to do, then the message is not gonna come through. So Rebbe was a distinct person, and if you have that quality, good. If you don't have that quality, then you don't have the quality. Now, it happened many times that because the parents were very holy, they passed on this quality to the children. But again, for example, the third Chabad Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, had 7 kids, 7 sons. But only one became the Rebbe. It's a quality you have to have. It's not a. What's that? Okay. So to use an example of science, okay? When 4 or 5 days after conception, the embryo reaches a stage called the platycyst stage, in which the cells there are what's called pluripotent cells, which means that these cells have the ability to become anything. They become heart cells, nerve cells, muscle cells, whatever. Once they become a nerve cell, a muscle cell, that's it. They forget the fact that they are a pluripotent cell. They forget that fact, and they remain whatever cell they are. Okay. Back in 2006 or 2007, scientists announced that they're able to remind the cell of its pluripotent state. That means they can take a cell, it's a nerve cell, and reverse it to make it a cell that can become any kind of cell. All right? So it's the same kind of thing is with us. All souls come from one source, God. All souls are holy. Then they kind of split up, and souls become, hand souls, and we split up by different types of levels of people that we are. But there's one person that remains a pluripotent soul, and that is the Rebbe. And the Rebbe is the person who can identify with everybody because he's not exactly identify with any one category. The Rebbe wasn't this, it wasn't that. He was the ultimate Jew who can identify with every single Jew. Not only the ultimate Jew, the ultimate person. He could identify with the Gentiles too. So that's what it means. The pluripotent soul remains aware of this of the source in God, and just like those scientists were able to reawaken that the element in the cell that forgot their pluripotent state. Pluripotent means a potential for plural. So too, the Rebbe is that person who can awaken in us that our pre-schmutz, our pre-dirt state, where we get so caught up in other things, so that it helps us realize who we really are. You see text number 19, the Alter Rebbe writes, this explains the comment of the sages on the verse, and to cleave to him, those who cleave unto the scholars deemed by the Torah as if they have become attached to God, which is quite literally true. For through the attachment to scholars, the soul of each person is bound up and united with its original essence. And the original essence is very important. The job of the Rebbe is not to be a mediator. The job of a tzaddik is not to be the mediator. He's not creating a connection. The Rebbe is revealing the connection, and that's why he's so revered. That's why you have pictures hanging of him all over the place. Because here's the guy who can get me to be the best I can be, not just who I think I am, but the best. But the best I can be. Good.
Have you ever met him?
Yeah, I have a picture of him giving me a dollar in my office.
No.
He would give out dollars to give to charity every Sunday, starting in 1988. Yeah, it's a big honor.
I used to ride toward Brooklyn, and I could see, I forget what street it was.
Eastern Parkway
Yeah, I know Eastern Parkway.
and Kingston.
And it was like, huh?
Yeah.
All I saw was black.
Exactly. Yeah, see, black hat. That's right.
Okay.
Okay, let's try to finish up. I think we have two more things on the agenda. Okay, let's go. Function Rebbe. Forgot the video.
אני אגיד לך מה אני משתדל לעשות. I will tell you what I try to do. I'll give straight away the English translation. He said, Rabbi Yehuda, imagine you're looking at a cupboard. And I tell you, open that cupboard. You open the cupboard. And you see inside a candle. But I tell you that is not a candle. That is a lump of wax with a piece of string in between. Musai hashavo v'hachut nehofchim lener. When does the wax and the wick become a candle? Kasher atomevi lehovo el hachut. When you bring a flame to the wick. As hashava v'hachut nehofchim lener. Lemor, that is to say, they fulfill the purpose for which they were created. That is what I try to do. Shekol ish v'isha yekayim es hamatorah shelamana hem nivro. That every man and woman should fulfill the purpose for which they were created. When you bring the flame to the wick is inside, and that is the soul, then it brings to life the body, which is the wax, and the body and the soul fulfill the purpose for which they were created. And that is by the Eish HaTorah, or the fire of Torah. And then, this I can say, he began to talk to me about the Sixth Fleet in the Mediterranean in detail, and about how it would be of strategic advantage to Israel if we could persuade Washington to establish a supply base for the Sixth Fleet in Haifa. It's 2:10 in the morning. I rise. He escorts me to his door, takes me by the hand, both hands, and I say to him, "Ha'im ha'Rebbe hidlik et hader sheli?" Has the Rebbe lit my candle? He said, "No. Nosati lecha es hagafur, rak ato yachol lahadlik es haner shelcha. I have given you the match. Only you can light your own candle."
All right. So, interesting story. You get it? All right. Next question. You have any questions about that? Afterwards. Let's try to finish. Yehuda Avner. He was he was a diplomat for the Israeli government. He recently passed away. Okay. One of the questions: why isn't Moshe mentioned in the Haggadah? I mean, you would see. I mean, you talk about the War of Independence. I mean, George Washington's there. I mean, Abraham Lincoln's Civil War.
He didn't pay a stipend to the people that wrote it.
Exactly, right? Right? It said that guy. So actually, the funny thing is that this question even wasn't even arisen until recently. It's quite no one even bothered to ask this question. But there are some Haggadahs that do make us a passing remark. You see in text number 20, it says that by the splitting of the sea, you'll see over there, it says they believed in Moshe, and they believed in God, and in Moshe, his servant. But it says again, it says over there, the emphasis is over here, is the importance of Moshe, is that they believed in God and Moshe as a servant. But that doesn't really answer the question, because some versions have, most versions don't have that statement, which means Moshe's name is not in the Haggadah at all. So there's two answers. Number one, you see in text number 21, it says, you see, you're not allowed to attribute a partner to God. And people were afraid that maybe you might think that who did all the miracles? Moshe. No, God did it. And in order to prevent anyone thinking that it was Moshe that split the sea, we'll get to that in a second. Well, the Moshe was split the sea and anything else, so therefore he was not put into Haggadah. So everyone should know it's absolute belief in Moshe. Another reason is text number 22 is that Moshe was a very humble guy. He didn't want the accolades. Moshe was the most humble person to ever walk the face of the earth, the Torah says. And therefore, he asked that his name not be included in the story. So the story of Pesach is good in and of itself. And if you remember, those of you who were in Shul on Pesach, we spoke about this and we gave a third reason. The answer we gave on Pesach was, it's because we don't find any history of Moshe's children. Remember this, sir? That we don't find any good history with Moshe's children. The only history we find of Moshe's children is negative history, that his grandson became a priest in a house of idol worship. And the whole point of Passover, Pesach, is Jewish education. And because he imparted the Torah to everyone, but not to his own family, and Pesach is all about education to one's own family, therefore he's not included in the Haggadah. Okay, last question. Save the best for last. Why is everything about food? right? You know the famous thing. They try to kill us. We won. Right? Everybody knows that one. And with that shameless plug, Shavuos, we eat food. Good food. I don't know how good for you it is, but food tastes good. If it's good for you, you know, if you have to hear all those words in order in that sentence, well, right? The question is like this. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, for example, we have to eat food. On Yom Tov, you know, many people make this mistake that on Shavuos they only eat dairy. They don't eat meat. It's a custom to eat dairy. You have to eat meat. You must eat meat. You're supposed to, and you're supposed to drink wine. So we spoke about the reason why we eat fish, because fish is connected to the source, and we have the tuchalot, which represent the manna, and the grape and the wine. It goes back to the sin of the tree, but it's much more than that. We're not just commanded to eat fish, wine, and challah. If you've ever been to my house, my wife, proud to say, serves a lot more than that, right? So it's a lot more. Look what the Rebbe writes in text number 23, in typical Hasidic style. We're not put in this world to reject the physical nature. We're put in this world to refine it. We're put in this world to use it in the service of good, to transform it. So you can fast, and even if and fasting helps your soul. But what have you done for your body? How have you refined your body? But if you can take something as base and low as eating and do it for a godly purpose, you can have a piece of meat, a good steak, but eat the steak because it's Shabbos or because it's Yom Tov. So now you're not just eating just for the sake of eating. Now you're eating. Now you're taking that. Now you're taking that physical item, and you're elevating it. So the soul comes down to this world, not to just abstain from the physical world. That's not our approach. You remember that story I told about the guy who was in Shul the night after Yom Kippur, and he was offered a taste of the world to come, or all his money back. A rich man who gave up everything, and the Rebbe said he's for sure wasn't a Chassid, because Hasidic teaching tells us that the soul's job to come down here is not to reject the world. You can have good meat and you can have good wine. Have it on Shabbos. Enjoy yourself. So you stop and you make a bracha. What you're doing is you're taking physical things and you're refining it. This is what Judaism is all about. This is why Judaism is inclusive, a religion of peace, because everything has a reason and a tool in the service of God. Like Rabbi Chaim Vital says, in text number 24, final text. No, as well, all mitzvot are only intended to purify the physical body, but the spiritual soul does not need any rectification. So if you're going to fast and you're going to be a hermit and you're going to go up on top of the mountain, what have you done? Your soul remains holy. That's a cardinal principle in Judaism. Your soul remains holy. Your soul doesn't need rectification. Your soul doesn't need refining. It's your body that needs refining. So pure pleasure, that's a transient experience. But if you take a good food, right, and you use it on Shabbos, so now it's not only for its sake, it's for a higher purpose. And no one's saying you can't enjoy a mitzvah. You could enjoy a mitzvah, but it's the mitzvah you're enjoying. It's not just you're enjoying yourself. It's a whole different approach. So you have mitzvah, like we started off. You have mitzvahs that hurt, and you have mitzvahs that are pleasurable. And we do it with all the same approach. And our approach is God asks us, we do it. You can ask why. Sometimes the rabbi will give you a good answer. Sometimes you'll say, I don't agree with that, but we're going to do it anyway, right? Like
You're not supposed to have good food the rest of the week.
no, you are. No. I'm using Shabbos as an example. You can have good food, but if the good food becomes an entity and a goal in and of itself, that's a problem. If you're using the energy from the good food to do other things, to do positive things, then the food is not an end; it's a means. That's the point. You can't worship the food. So this is the approach as we bring this course to a close. Our job is a absolute dedication to whatever the Torah says. Eat cheesecake, I like it. no problem. Then next holiday we fast. I don't like it. I do it, no problem. Everything we do because God says. Some things we agree, some things we don't. Sometimes we'll get the answer why, and sometimes we won't. But our dedication to Judaism remains the same. Okay, any questions? Let me shut off the class. YouTube.